One of the things that I think is really important is really the question of how. I mean, how do regulators strike that balance between setting regulatory policy by sending businesses the right message at the same time trying to get the right results? And many of you all have touched on that. Kurt, you were a former state utility regulator before you came to the FERC, and there's been a lot of public attention on the proposed penalty and fine against the California utility, PG&E, for the tragic accident in that was over in the city of San Bruno where the pipeline exploded. I guess the fine was tremendously large compared to the net income. It was about 481% of the company's net income in 2012. Similar fines against utilities for other pipeline accidents have been between 1% and 22% of what their net income is. What do you think? How do you think they wrestled with that?
Boy, I tell you, that's to be fair to the CPUC, let me say that when you're extraordinarily close to something, and this kind of gets back to why many of us think state regulators do such a good job with state regulation, because they are right there. On top of
Yep.
it, and they do. When you hear about a dozen people with a lost life and 35 homes torched, for lack of a better term, it's hard to remove yourself from that. I think it's hard to look and see that your residents and your citizens were harmed. And, the numbers, the problem with this place that we're in today, I'm not sure what a big number is anymore. It used to be you'd hear $1 million and, gee, that's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And then it was $1 billion, and now it's $1 trillion. I'm not sure where we go to see what a big number is. And it kind of gets back to what I talked about with hydro and what we dealt with at FERC. You get into this bidding war, and I think, if you could find some independent body almost that's kind of removed from it to say, here's what we would suggest and here's what we think is reasonable, it gets all the goals that you want in mind while sending the same message, while penalizing the wrongdoer. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you the thing, and I'm not extraordinarily close to that. I've studied it a fair amount because it's interesting to me to see what the outcome is for a couple of reasons. One, you want them to do it right, and you want it to send the proper message so that this industry continues to thrive, because we are in a situation where the oil and gas industry in the United States is thriving. I mean, it's actually doing well. It's something I think not many of us envisioned. And this could be a real step back for us if it's done in a wrong way. But the thing I thought that PG&E did, of all the things they've done, I know they've spent, I don't know, around $2 billion, I think, on upgrading their system and trying to fix some of the problems. But the change in management, what they did there, I can tell you from working with a Fortune 250 company, no one likes to fire people, and no one likes to demote people. If you do, you're in the wrong business. You need to be doing something else. But there is a time where that has to be done, and I think those actions, to me, spoke volumes to me. And if I were a regulator and I were sitting there, I would be looking at what PG&E did internally. What actions did they take? What corrective actions have they taken from a monetary point of view? And I would talk about what I wish I could force them to pay and bankrupt them and send them backward. But then I would come back and say, but from a reasoned point of view, we understand we can't do that. And that's not my role. And what we need to do is send the right signal, create the conduct we're trying to create, which is a compliance conduct. Not get caught up in the enforcement and with the media and everything that's going on. And anytime you mention net income, it kills me when people look at these numbers and they just want to draw upon something like net income. But you get outside of 50% of net income, I mean, it's problematic. And here's the second reason. I represent different folks, but I have a pipeline right now that I'm representing. And we have a situation where we have some safety issues. We've brought in the federal safety folks in the state, and we have an issue that's going to be very expensive to turn around. We're likely looking at an abandonment. And FERC has not been very good at giving abandonments. Why? They haven't been very good at it because, quite frankly, they don't like to take takeaway capacity offline,
Yeah.
or interstate capacity for that matter. So they don't like doing that. Well, I think if you see fines like this that are going to be in the 4B and the 2B, I think you're going to have companies who are in that situation start. I think you're going to see more abandonment proceedings, which is really not good for the industry.
Well, it's just a tough question.
It
it's
is.
a way tough question.
I'm glad
It's
I'm not there. It's
I
tough.
know.
You know.
But-
Senator, may I weigh
Sure.
in for a second? Because
Please.
this one is something I've been following as well. And I agree with everything Kurt said so far, number one. Number two, the state level is a little more complicated because unlike the federal level where he gets to deal with rate cases and all I have to deal with is the safety side, the state agencies deal with both within the same agency oftentimes. And so there's, not that there's a conflict of interest, but there's some differing agendas at times. I want to keep reliable, safe, and cheap, affordable energy, but yet, I have to approve rate increases to pay for safety upgrades that are being mandated at the federal level or at the state level. And so there's a give and take. What troubles me about cases where they go on for so long, and a company has gone ahead and taken corrective action, very expensive corrective action, and you can argue they should have done that all along. Fine, okay, they're doing it. One of the proposals is to not allow anything done to date to be counted. That would serve as a serious disincentive for every other utility or pipeline company, because I would sit back and go, oh, so I can do all this and then still get fined an exorbitant amount, or I can do nothing for 2 years and actually pay less. That sends a completely wrong public policy message in my view.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think that goes back to looking at everything. What have they done? What kind of an operation have they run? How are they doing things? Because it makes a difference.
Mitigation is considered at the federal level. That's one of the first things we look at is what have you done in the intervening time from disclosure to now. And yeah, so that's something I'm kind of watching.
Any other questions?